I'm Leo, a civil engineer specializing in bridge infrastructure. I own my home outright, built my career from the ground up with zero family financial support, and I've always approached relationships the same way I run my construction projects. Plan thoroughly, document every shared expense and conversation, compromise on equal terms, and hold firm on non-negotiable boundaries. Over my 20s and early 30s, I dated 3 women, each trapped in the same cycle of selfish ego that made them discard our shared future for fleeting personal gain. The first, Chloe, dumped me mid-restaurant dinner after months of hidden workplace infidelity, leaving me holding thousands in wedding deposits I'd paid entirely alone. The second, Maya, flat out rejected my proposal to chase a law firm partnership, demanding I put my life on hold for 5 years with no promise of commitment. The third, Amelia, asked for a one-time cheat pass as our 4-year anniversary gift, and her body language told me she already had another man lined up to sleep with. All 3 assumed I'd crumble emotionally, begged them to reconsider, and rearrange my entire life to cater to their desires. None of them expected I would act quickly to protect my assets via legal contracts, cut all contact without screaming fights, and rebuild a balanced, equal marriage with a partner who valued mutual respect above personal ambition. Years later, every single one watched their self-serving dreams collapse completely. They hit rock bottom, hunted down my contact information, and came crawling back with half-hearted apologies to beg for a second chance. I turned each of them away calmly, all the evidence of their cruelty stored safely in my private digital archives, never once raising my voice or resorting to petty retaliation. Hashtag chapter 1 my fiancé dumped me mid-dinner while cheating on me. We've been engaged 14 months, and every wedding contract, venue deposit, and stationery retainer was filed solely under my legal name. Chloe, my fiancé, pushed all wedding planning labor onto me, claiming her marketing workload left her no spare time to handle logistics. I'd happily taken over the work back then, convinced her reliance on me was a sign of trust. In hindsight, she'd already been sleeping with a male coworker from her agency for 3 full months, waiting for a public dining space to break things off, so I cannot create a disruptive scene. She picked a busy downtown Italian restaurant for the breakup meal, fully counting on surrounding strangers to force me to suppress any raw emotion. For weeks leading up to that night, small red flags stacked up, which I buried under hope that our upcoming wedding would fix the growing distance between us. She returned home from team events hours past her stated end time, took winding detours labeled fabric shopping that never matched fabric store locations, and kept our location sharing app active, but never checked my whereabouts, while I regularly glanced at the map to coordinate joint meal plans. I told myself I was overthinking minor inconsistencies. I loved her deeply, and I'd already poured over $12,000 into our spring wedding venue and catering. We made small talk for 40 minutes about her team's upcoming campaign launch and a trip her sister planned to host, and I relaxed, convinced the tension lingering between us was fading. I brought up the printer's timeline for wedding invitations, and her entire posture shifted instantly. She set her fork flat against her plate, hands braced on either side of the table in a rehearsed, memorized pose, and said, "I don't think this is going to work anymore." My tone stayed level. I did not yell, slam my glass, or beg for immediate explanation, exactly the opposite reaction she'd spent weeks preparing for. I simply asked how long she'd felt this disconnect between us. She brushed the question off with a vague line about a few months of uncertainty. In that second, I connected every late night, every suspicious detour, every evasive text to the secret coworker she'd hidden from me for months. She rambled about needing space to figure out her personal priorities, relying on empty, generic language that carried no concrete reasoning for ending our engagement. I pointed out she'd continued booking wedding appointments and contributing zero funds to the event while already mentally checking out of our life together. She waited for me to spiral into tears, bargaining, anger. When I only nodded and confirmed I understood her final decision, her confident demeanor wavered. She grabbed her purse and walked straight out of the restaurant without glancing back, leaving me alone at the table with unfinished food. I finished my glass of wine, paid the full dinner bill, left a standard tip, and drove home without a single emotional outburst. The second I stepped through my front door, I pulled up all wedding legal paperwork on my laptop. The venue contract included a strict 60-day cancellation clause that guaranteed a partial deposit refund if I submitted formal written notice immediately. We were only 43 days away from losing that financial safety net entirely. I drafted a certified cancellation email with time-stamped proof of our terminated engagement, sent it directly to venue management, and submitted a formal mail request for official termination documentation. Next, I canceled the invitation printer retainer, another charge solely under my name. I exported every shared cloud wedding file to my encrypted private drive, then revoked Chloe's access to all live vendor correspondence, seating charts, and catering notes. She would only see an empty folder on her end, cut off from all active financial and planning records tied to the wedding I'd funded. Once all administrative damage control finished, I reopened our shared location tracker app. Her pin was not positioned at her sister's apartment, her regular friend's house, or any residential spot she'd mentioned previously. The marker sat at a mid-range business hotel 2 blocks from the restaurant we'd just left. I captured a timestamp screenshot of the location log and saved it to a dedicated evidence folder. No rage, only factual documentation of her lie. I did not drive over to confront her at the hotel. There was no value in chasing a conversation she'd premeditated to avoid accountability. The following day, a mutual friend we'd both known for years sent me an awkward private message. She'd spotted Chloe dining with her coworker the previous night at a casual restaurant 2 blocks from that same hotel. That witness account sealed every loose thread of the hidden affair for me. Instead of firing angry text messages to Chloe, I scheduled a consultation with my attorney, compiling all wedding financial records, contracts, and location proof for future reference. Chloe sent 2 texts overnight, one shallow check-in claiming she hoped I was coping well, and another begging to schedule a private conversation soon. I ignored every message, choosing to gather full context before engaging with her at all on the 3rd day after the breakup. Sharp knocks echoed against my front door. When I opened it, Chloe stood on my porch alongside her mother, both wearing tense, performative expressions that made their manipulative intent obvious before they spoke a single word. Chloe's mother had been warm and affectionate our entire engagement, constantly referring to me as her future son-in-law, but her face tightened the second I opened the door, ready to smooth over conflict on her daughter's behalf. They stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, and I did not offer drinks or seating to soften the rigid atmosphere. Chloe immediately accused me of canceling the venue without consulting her first. I explained calmly the contract listed only my legal liability, and I acted within the official cancellation window to recover my personal funds after she explicitly stated our relationship was permanently over. She backtracked instantly, claiming she'd only been upset that night and had never intended to end things for good. I cut her off mid-sentence and asked directly where she'd traveled after walking out of the restaurant. She hesitated, then lied and claimed she'd stayed overnight at a friend's home. I pressed her to name the friend, and silence stretched 6 full seconds before her mother tried to interject to cover for her daughter's deception. I told them I already held timestamp location screenshots and a witness account of her dinner with her coworker near the hotel. All her prepared excuses crumbled instantly. She broke down partially, admitting she'd seen the colleague for 3 months and had only dumped me to test whether she wanted to commit to him instead of our planned marriage. She begged to fix everything between us, saying she'd made a rash emotional choice that night without thinking through the consequences. I told her I had no intention of assisting her with escaping the fallout of her own decisions, and all outstanding financial loose ends would be sorted exclusively through my legal representative. Her mother stayed silent for the rest of the conversation, realizing her daughter had hidden the full truth about the affair before they came to my house to pressure me into forgiveness. They left defeated, and I never reached out after that visit. Weeks later, the venue processed my partial deposit refund per the written contract rules. Chloe sent a long, regretful late-night paragraph detailing how she'd ruined everything, but I never responded to the message. Her fling with a coworker fell apart shortly after our breakup. The secret affair lost its thrilling novelty once it no longer required hiding from me. She'd fully counted on me to cave, reverse the wedding cancellation, and absorb all financial loss caused by her infidelity. Instead, I protected my assets, cut her off completely, and never looked back. Hashtag chapter 2, my ex-girlfriend rejected my proposal for her law career and came begging years later. Maya dated me for 4 full years, sharing my apartment for the final 12 months of our relationship. She worked at a competitive corporate law firm, obsessed with climbing the partnership ladder above every other priority in her life. I respected professional ambition, but Maya framed every single life decision as a competition between her career and our relationship. Weekend plans dissolved into last-minute case prep sessions, every casual dinner conversation circled back to firm politics and billable hour quotas, and she treated our shared future as a temporary afterthought while she chased promotion status. After 3.5 years together, I planned a quiet, intimate home proposal, avoiding public spectacle because I knew she hated unpredictable attention. I cooked our standard weeknight meal, we cleaned the kitchen side by side, then I pulled out the ring box while we sat on the couch with glasses of wine. Her reaction held no shock or joy, only mild irritation, as if I'd dropped an inconvenient work deadline onto her lap without warning. She immediately questioned the timing, launching into a speech about how partnership track optics would suffer if firm leadership saw her engaged this early in her climb. Marriage would create unfair assumptions about maternity leave and split professional focus, she argued, and she could not afford that distraction right now. When I asked if she only wanted to delay the proposal or did not want a life with me at all, she shrugged and said a viable commitment might exist 5 years down the line minimum. 5 years with zero guarantees that she would ever prioritize us over her job meant I was expected to freeze all my own life milestones indefinitely while she advanced alone. I pointed out a functional relationship could not operate on a permanent holding pattern where every compromise fell solely on my shoulders. She labeled me insecure and dramatic for wanting standard long-term commitment, framing my desire to settle down as an immature demand that would hold her professional potential back. That exchange marked my breaking point. I closed the ring box and told her if her career permanently took precedence over building a shared life together, we could no longer continue as committed partners. She laughed the statement off, fully convinced I was bluffing and would back down after a few days of cooling off. Since the entire apartment lease existed solely in my name, I told her she needed to begin packing her belongings and secure new housing by the end of the weekend. Her cocky, superior attitude vanished instantly. She listed every small favor she'd supposedly completed for me to guilt me into reversing the breakup, claiming men my age would struggle to find another compatible partner. I refused to engage with her manipulation tactics. By Sunday evening, she loaded moving boxes with a friend's assistance and moved out without a proper goodbye, sneering I would regret letting her walk away once I realized how rare her drive and intelligence were. After the split, I cleared all traces of her belongings from the space, refocused fully on bridge construction projects, and slowly entered casual dating with zero pressure to rush into serious commitment. A year and a half post-breakup, I met Anna, an architectural project manager. She maintained a demanding career of her own, but balanced work and partnership evenly. We celebrated each other's professional wins without ranking one person's ambitions higher than the other. We built a steady, equal dynamic and married 2 years after meeting. One Thursday afternoon, I headed down my office lobby to meet Anna for our regular lunch date. As the elevator doors slid open, I spotted Maya arguing with the front desk staff. She'd arrived unannounced without an appointment, demanding unrestricted access to my work floor. She spun around, recognized me, and dropped her hostile tone immediately, rushing over to strike up conversation as if we had not parted on brutal terms years prior. Before I could reply, Anna walked through the lobby glass doors to join me. I introduced Anna as my wife, and Maya's confident facade crumbled on the spot. She stumbled over her words and admitted she'd tracked down my workplace hoping to talk through our old breakup. Maya explained the law firm she'd sacrificed our relationship for underwent massive restructuring. All the senior partners she'd catered to left abruptly, and the partnership track she'd fixated on dissolved entirely. She'd left the firm to take a low-stress small consulting role, and over the past year she'd rethought all her old priorities. She admitted she'd mishandled our proposal conversation horribly, then asked if we could meet alone sometime to talk through everything. I told her I appreciated the half-hearted acknowledgement of her mistakes, but my life had fully moved on with a partner who valued mutual compromise over one-sided career obsession. I gestured to Anna beside me and made it clear the stable future I'd wanted back when I proposed had finally materialized, just not with Maya. Maya's disappointment was impossible to hide. She mumbled that if I'd only been more patient with her all those years ago, things could have turned out differently, still refusing to acknowledge the core issue. She'd viewed me as a disposable placeholder while she chased status. I did not argue with her warped framing of our shared history. Anna and I walked off to lunch and left her standing alone in the lobby. I never received another message or call from Maya after that encounter. Watching her realize the grand career sacrifice she'd made yielded nothing while I built a balanced, happy marriage delivered quiet closure without any cruel retaliation on my part. Hashtag chapter 3 My wife asked for a cheap pass as our 4th anniversary gift. I worked as a regional warehouse operations manager, purchasing my small suburban townhouse 7 years before Amelia and I married. The mortgage, all utility accounts, and home insurance were registered solely under my name. We split grocery and streaming service bills evenly, but all major assets belonged to me long before our wedding. Amelia worked as an online retail graphic designer, sharp-witted and frequently entitled, prone to framing every selfish impulse as a modern, progressive lifestyle choice. Our 4-year wedding anniversary was approaching, and I planned a simple coastal dinner followed by a short weekend trip to the shore, matching our usual low-key celebration style. 3 nights before our anniversary dinner, Amelia pulled me to the kitchen table with a rehearsed, confident air, announcing she had a specific anniversary request she wanted to discuss. I assumed she wanted to adjust travel plans or shop for new home decor. Nothing could have prepared me for what she said next. She asked me to grant her a one-time free pass to sleep with another man as her anniversary present, framing the idea as a healthy boundary experiment she'd heard discussed on lifestyle podcasts. I pressed her if there was a specific person she already had in mind, and she brushed the question off, claiming the concept was purely theoretical. But her evasive body language told me she'd already lined someone up and only wanted my retroactive permission to avoid personal guilt. When I pointed out the obvious red flags in her request, she accused me of being old-fashioned and insecure, claiming most modern couples granted each other occasional freedom to keep their marriages exciting. She even argued she was doing me a favor by being honest instead of sneaking around behind my back. I asked again directly if she'd coordinated plans with a specific man, and she hesitated for a split second before doubling down on the just hypothetical lie. That hesitation confirmed every suspicion I held. I told her if she craved the freedom to pursue other partners, she could exercise that choice as a single woman, not my wife living in my home. Amelia laughed it off, convinced I would cool down and apologize for overreacting after an hour or two of space to process my emotions. I grabbed her overnight travel bag from the upstairs closet and set it by the front door, giving her 20 minutes to pack essential belongings and leave the property. Her amusement vanished instantly. She switched to angry accusations, claiming I was controlling and clinging to outdated marriage standards. I did not raise my voice or engage in a screaming match. I restated the simple boundary: my house, my marriage, my baseline expectation of monogamy. If she could not respect that rule, she could not stay living there with me. She stormed upstairs to pack, slamming every drawer hard enough to shake the walls, and drove off in her car within the half-hour window I had given her. The second the driveway fell silent, I blocked her cell number and all her social media accounts to avoid endless manipulative texts and calls. The next morning, I scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney, outlining that the property was premarital and we held no joint assets of significance to fight over during separation. Over the following weeks, Amelia messaged me repeatedly from burner phone numbers, alternating between angry accusations and sad pleas to come home. I ignored every communication. A month later, her older sister reached out to explain Amelia's current situation. The man she'd wanted the cheat pass for had let her move into his shared rental apartment with a roommate, but he'd been seeing multiple women simultaneously. After 2 weeks of living there, the roommate kicked Amelia out for causing constant household conflict. She had nowhere stable to stay and began flooding my burner lines, begging to move back into my townhouse temporarily while she sorted new housing arrangements. She admitted she'd made a terrible mistake and tried to frame the cheat pass request as a silly, impulsive slip of judgment, ignoring how deeply her demand had violated our marriage foundation. I read all her desperate messages, but never typed a single reply. Eventually, she called from an unknown number, tearful and defeated, begging for a place to crash. I told her she'd made her definitive choice the night she asked for permission to cheat, and I would not be opening my home or our marriage back up to her self-serving whims. I finalized the divorce paperwork through my attorney shortly after, and never heard from her again. She counted on me to cave and provide a safety net once her reckless choices blew up, but I refused to take responsibility for the consequences of her own entitled decisions. Hashtag chapter 4 final reflection. All three women operated from the exact identical psychological playbook, prioritize their own fleeting desires over our shared life plans, deploy vague excuses and moral bullying to twist my reasonable boundaries into unreasonable demands, fully expect me to grieve and beg them to stay, and assume my stable career, home, and reliability would always act as a backup plan when their selfish dreams fell apart. What none of them anticipated was my consistent pattern of quiet, structured self-preservation. I never screamed, never stalked them, never resorted to petty harassment or public humiliation. My only protective action was securing my legal assets, cutting all contact cleanly, and refusing to absorb the fallout of their poor choices when they inevitably regretted them. Each of their apologies arrived only after their alternate paths crumbled. No genuine remorse for hurting me, only regret that they'd lost the secure, steady life I'd built to support them. Maya lost the career status she'd sacrificed us for, Chloe's secret affair could not sustain its novelty, and Amelia's casual lover abandoned her without a second thought. Every one of them realized the stability and unconditional support I'd offered was far harder to replace than they'd imagined when they walked away. Meanwhile, I built a balanced life with a partner who treats compromise as a two-way exchange, never forces me to shrink my own goals to accommodate hers. This whole experience taught me the clearest lesson about romantic relationships. People who only value you for what you can provide, money, housing, emotional labor, a stable backup plan, will discard you the second something shinier catches their eye. The second that shiny option fades, they'll circle back, hoping you'll still be waiting to absorb their messes. I do not hold bitter resentment toward any of them, but I will never grant them a second chance either. I set firm boundaries the moment they cross my core lines, stuck rigidly to my plans, prioritized my own peace, and let natural consequences resolve their mistakes without lifting a finger to orchestrate their downfalls. That quiet, lasting satisfaction is far more powerful than any dramatic screaming match or vengeful scheme could ever deliver.